Hey everyone, I'm Janessa and welcome back to my channel, Called to be Salty. This is a program that's aimed at igniting a mom's passion to reach those outside of her circle to make disciples of Jesus one-on-one. Well, we just finished up the 5-part series of what is a biblically defined disciple. And today we're going to jump in on the topic I'm passionate about, which is looking at the reason behind one-on-one disciple making. Why is that significant and why is that my passion? Well, if you're like me, maybe you've grown up in the faith, you grew up in the church. And so typically our response when we approach somebody is inviting them to our church, right? Or maybe we'll tell them about our church that we go to. And while that can have some effect on someone and it can be somewhat moving for them to see your faith, it is not the same at all as one-on-one discipleship. So today we're going to look at, for two reasons. First, we're going to look at the difference of our society versus what it used to be and where that one-on-one discipleship comes in. And then we're also going to look at just the statistics of people belonging to church nowadays and why that's important. Let's jump in on that first topic. According to the Gallup poll online, their numbers came in over the last couple of years on statistics of percentages and who all belongs to either a church, a mosque, or a synagogue. Okay, so back in 2021, the amount of people that belong to either a church, synagogue, or a mosque dropped to 47%. Okay, now the reason why that's important is because that was the lowest number in 8 decades. Okay, so bear with me here. There's a reason I'm telling you these numbers. Okay, then you fast forward a few more years. The next Gallup poll, okay, that was just put out last year, now dropped to 34%. Okay, of those who, post-COVID now, claim that they belong to a church, synagogue, or mosque. 34%. And out of that, the final numbers, 36% of those were millennials. Okay. So only 36% of millennials say that within this last week, they were affiliated in any sort of way with a church, synagogue, or mosque. Okay. So why all the numbers, right? Well, one of the reasons why one-on-one discipleship is so important, especially right now, ladies, is because we have never seen in the most recent 100+ years of gathering totals and statistics, we have never seen such a sharp decline in church membership and regular church going. Okay, so how this plays out, let's say you are at the park, right, with your littles, and you see, I don't know, let's say you see 10 women there, right, with their kids, right? Well, you know, just by the statistics, right, that 6 or 7 of them are not actively going to any church or mosque or synagogue, right? So right then and there, you think, wow, the harvest is plentiful, right? There is many out there who are not affiliated with any faith, right? And so why do I bring that up? Why do I bring these numbers up? Because if we're not careful, right, as women who are called to be salty, we can look at our sharing faith in a way of just merely inviting someone to our church, right? And so what I want us to see out of today is that inviting someone to our church is the most base starting point, right? That you're just inviting them to your church. But let's look at the numbers, ladies. We obviously see that this is not the most effective way of making new disciples of Jesus because the numbers bear out that, like I mentioned earlier, 34% over these last 3 years claim to be part of a church or mosque or synagogue. Okay. So with that being said, why? Why is that? Why is the one-on-one discipleship? How does that come in with, referring to church going? Well, we have seen a dramatic increase in our churches, right? Programs. I mean, programs and ministries and opportunities and this night and this function and this camp. And while these things are mostly good, they are mostly probably beneficial, right? There has to be an understanding that when we look at reaching others with the gospel, when we look at the idea of not merely building myself up in my faith that I already have, but when we look at it in the form of reaching those who do not have faith, we need to see that 34% are currently going to church, right? So those ministries and those outreaches, although the intentions are wonderful, and does it bring some people to the faith? Of course it does. But there's a vast majority of space, there's a vast majority of harvest that is not being tapped into by the collective church building and events that happen within that building. Okay, so the reason why this is significant, ladies, is because we are that church. Okay, we are the hands and feet of Jesus. So inviting them to a church, most likely 7 out of 10 are going to say no, or they might mean well, but they don't end up coming. We are that church sent by the Lord to reach those outside of our circle, and especially outside of our circle, right? We're not talking about maybe specifically other people who live exactly our same kind of patterned lives, right? We're talking about people who are maybe not safe and comfortable in a religious organization. I mean, I've talked to many people who are nervous, right, of stepping through the actual threshold of a church building. No matter how loving this church is, you are still entering into this building, right? And it can be nerve-wracking. So just loosely inviting someone to church, we got to do better than that, ladies. 34% go to church. We've got to reach that other, 66%. And it's us to do it, right? So I'm going to look today at Romans 10:14, and let's look at this as a charge to our hearts to go out and make disciples, ladies. Romans 10:14. Let me start in 13. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. How then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. Women, we are the ones to be that salt of the earth and bring this good news. And we don't want to take a comfy back seat thinking, oh, you know what, my church will take care of it, right? That's the pastor's job, or that's the elder's job. No, that is our job. We are that church. We are those hands and feet, right? Because I'm sure we'll all agree, me saying to someone, hey, come to my church, there's no risk in that, really, right? There's really no sacrifice in that. But if we go up to that woman or that teen girl or that homeless person on the street, and we say, instead of just saying, come to my church, if we look at them and we say, come to my home, I want to make us some coffee, and I just want to share some joy I have in my heart. And I want to introduce you to the Bible in a way that maybe you've never experienced before. How impactful do you think that's going to be, right? Or if you can't meet in your home, maybe there's a park that you love going to. Maybe there's a coffee shop. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. That will be another video for another time. But ladies, we are the ones to bring that good news. We don't want to just throw it on the church or expect the church building to do its work. We are that church. Well, just in case we misread verse 15, how can anyone preach unless they are sent? I've had women tell me, oh, Janessa, I'm not like that, right? I'm not like that. I don't have the boldness to go out. Guess what? We are all commanded by Jesus, for those who know him, to go out and make disciples. And in a future video, I'm going to look at the different personalities that we all have. All of us have a different story. All of us have a different comfort level. And yet we are all called to the same work. So we can and should go out and make disciples, okay? Let's look at the idea of being sent, because we all are sent. Well, that very same word, being sent, in Greek is the same that Paul uses in Acts 28 when he preaches to the, let me see here, he's preaching to local Jewish leaders here. And he says in verse 28, "Therefore, I want you to know that God's salvation has been sent to the Gentiles, and they will listen." Well, how has God's salvation been sent to the Gentiles? Through us, through the good news of the gospel, right? So be encouraged. Number one, the statistics are down, right? So that alone should be the fuel to our fire of going out and making disciples. Remember, he doesn't just call some to be salty. He calls all of us to be salty. Jesus does. And once again, the anchoring verse of this program can be found in Colossians 4, 5. So be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. We are that salt. It isn't just the church building, it is us. And the time has never been more urgent, ladies, for us to go out than it is today, right? And like I said, next video, I'm going to be covering how can we do that with different stories and different personalities, right? We're going to cover that next time. Well, the second point that I want to cover today is, secondly, we are living in such an independent, individualistic society, aren't we, as women today? But it was not that way in ancient times, right? So ancient Israelite women, for instance, had a much better opportunity to have community living and conversation naturally flow, right, and come as they discussed the happenings of the day, maybe the politics, right? And this was done because they obviously needed to work together a lot more than we do today, right? They would grind their grains, they would weave, they would, a lot of times they would come together to be baking their bread. For instance, it could take up to 2 hours for women together to bring their grain and grind it and bake together, right? So they had communal living. Therefore, they did not have to really exert a lot of energy or pour out a lot of effort for those conversations to flow, right? So maybe you tell the woman next to you as you're working together, right? You heard this great teacher come to town, Jesus, right? And you follow him together, okay? Today, I don't even need to tell you, right, ladies, how independent we are, right? Whether we like it or not, it's the society that we live in, right? All of us, even if we have work as moms, like part-time work, a lot of times it's behind a computer, right? Or we are just quick customer service and we're out of there, right? So everything is very individualistic. And so while that gives us a lot of wonderful convenience, it does cause somewhat of a hurdle when it comes to our natural rubbing shoulders with other women, right? In our day-to-day life. So back then, the one-on-one talking was much more, it was just another piece of the puzzle to their day, right? So it was already factored into their life. But for us, and this will be another video for the future, we have got to understand and embrace that we are going to have to go out of our way as women to somehow tap into that space again, right? Where we have conversations with women, teen girls, right? Or the elderly that are outside of our circle. So how do we do that? We're going to have to make it happen, right? We're going to have to make that happen because it is not naturally configured anymore into our days. So come back next time for the next video of how do we make that happen, right? How do we specifically, especially with kids, right? We have kids, so we've got to be creative and we got to have forethought when it comes to making one-on-one disciples. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Called to Be Salty video. I'm so happy that you joined me, and come out next time as we look at the creative ways of how we can go out and make one-on-one disciples for Jesus.